Welcome to the channel of inspiring and motivating stories. In a remote northern village, tucked away amidst endless evergreen forests, lived a 14-year-old boy named Tim. He was scrawny and shorter than the other kids his age. He was insecure. His family was typical: a calm mother, a hard-working father, and a noisy younger sister named Mika. But one thing set Tim apart: he was exceptionally timid. Not just cautious, he was afraid of anything that strayed even slightly from the familiar. He was scared of the night, because in the darkness, he imagined giant shadows. He was scared of the old, abandoned mill on the outskirts of the village. He was scared of loud noises, strangers, and even his own reflection, because when he was 5, he once decided his reflection blinked at the wrong moment. Since then, fear had been his constant companion. But most of all, Tim feared the forest trail that started behind his house and led deep into a vast, mysterious forest. Locals called it Blueberry Woods, and while blueberries did indeed grow there, everyone knew, the berries were just the surface of the forest. Something lurked deeper within. The old-timers spoke of strange sounds, confusing paths, wandering echoes, and light without a source. Tim tried not to think about it, but the trail caught his eye every day. It seemed to call to him. Or, was it watching? One morning, Tim woke to a strange tapping at his window. He went over but saw no one. Only a small bundle beneath the windowsill. The boy unwrapped it and found a letter on thick yellow paper. The handwriting was beautiful, but old-fashioned. "Tim, your father is in danger. He hasn't returned from Blueberry Woods. If you don't come for him by sunset, he will be lost forever. Fear is only stronger when you surrender to it. Make your choice." A chill went down Tim's spine. His father had indeed been working somewhere in the forest for 3 days, helping surveyors. But gone missing. And who wrote this? Why did the letter come to him? It was addressed specifically to him. His mother was still asleep at that moment. Tim trembled like a leaf. He knew perfectly well, if he told her, his mother would either not believe him or forbid him to go. And time, if the letter was true, was limited. Something clicked inside him. Maybe fear. Maybe love for his father. Or, a strange feeling that this letter was meant specifically for him. Tim slipped the paper into his pocket, grabbed a small backpack, a flashlight, and a chocolate bar, then quietly left the house, heading straight for the place he'd been terrified to go his entire life. To where the trail began. The forest met him with silence. Not an ominous one, it was too warm, unnatural. Even the wind didn't dare to rustle as the boy stepped onto the narrow path. Within a minute, he realized the path was changing. It seemed to widen when he wanted to pass, and narrow when he hesitated. "I'm just imagining things," Tim tried to reassure himself. But the path was breathing. He felt it. An hour later, he saw strange marks on the trees, circles, arrows, triangles. As if someone was blazing a trail. Strange marks. Tim remembered his father. He often left markers when working in difficult terrain. The boy's heart beat faster. That meant his father really had been here. But the marks stopped as suddenly as they had started. And with that, the silence shattered. Somewhere ahead, a moan rang out. Tim gripped his flashlight and moved forward. The sound grew clearer, a plaintive noise, like a wounded human. But when the boy stepped into a small clearing, he was almost paralyzed with terror. On the grass sat something resembling a human. It was covered by a long cloak, trembling and whimpering softly. Tim recoiled. The creature sharply turned its head. It really did look human, but its eyes, too large, dark, like bottomless pits. It stared directly at him. "You're not my father," Tim barely whispered. The creature extended a hand and spoke in an unexpectedly calm voice, "No. But I know where he is." Tim froze. "You shouldn't fear what you don't understand," the creature continued. "Your fear feeds the forest. But it can also protect you." The creature held out a wooden pendant in the shape of an eye. "Go on. But when the path disappears, don't look with your feet, but with your heart." And it vanished. It didn't run, didn't dissolve, it simply blinked, and in its place, a damp patch remained on the grass. What a strange thing. Tim stood in a daze. He wanted to run back. But the pendant in his hand grew warm, and the boy felt a strange calm. He went on. A few hours later, Tim noticed the path was starting to behave strangely. Sometimes it would split, but when he got closer, the extra part would vanish. Sometimes branches would fall before him, forming arrows. As if someone was leading him. Or something. Finally, the path vanished completely. It simply disappeared, dissolving among the trees. Tim remembered the creature's words, "When the path disappears, look with your heart." He took out the pendant. It began to glow with a soft amber light. The light pointed the way. Tim walked toward it. The forest began to change. The trees grew taller, their trunks thicker, the air heavier. And then Tim saw shadows. They moved among the trees as if alive. Some were human-shaped, others too strange, too elongated or bent. Not one belonged to a real object. But they didn't attack. They simply watched. Tim walked, feeling fear envelop him like a thick fog. But he kept going. Because now, fear began to push him forward. After some time, he emerged into a new clearing, where a small house stood. Old, as if abandoned decades ago. No windows, no doors, just solid walls made of black wood. Tim felt it, his father had to be here. The pendant glowed brighter. The boy approached the house wall, and the light from the pendant began to be absorbed into the wood, making it transparent. In an instant, the wall vanished. Inside was a corridor, lit by a soft bluish glow. Tim entered. "Dad," he called softly. There was no answer. Only a distant sound, like a whisper. He walked further. The deeper he went, the wider the space became, as if the house was larger on the inside than it appeared from the outside. The walls trembled, as if breathing. Tim heard the whisper again. Clearer now. Fear guides, fear protects, fear shows the way. He clutched the pendant and quickened his pace. The corridor led him into a massive circular hall. In the center was a well. Above it, many mirrors, suspended in mid-air. They moved, rotated, each reflecting something different. In one, his home. In another, the mill he'd always been afraid of. In a third, himself, but older, more frightened. And suddenly, one mirror reflection spoke to him. "You've come too late." Tim flinched. "That's a lie," he said, his voice trembling. The reflection sneered. "You're always afraid. You can never do anything on time." "That's not true," Tim countered. The mirror showed his father, lying as if unconscious, somewhere in the forest. Tim felt fear constrict his chest. But he took a step forward. "Show me where he is." All the mirrors simultaneously flashed with a bright light. The room shuddered. And then the well made a sound. The well trembled, as if something within it had awakened. From the depths came a dull, low sound, like footsteps, but too measured, too deliberate. Tim stood on the edge, barely keeping his balance. Cold air rose from within, enveloping his face. He leaned closer, and nearly recoiled. On the surface of the well's darkness, a face appeared. It was shapeless, as if woven from smoke, but features could be made out: wide cheekbones, a dark beard. His father. "Dad!" Tim cried out, but the echo swallowed his voice. The face rose higher, and now it looked directly at the boy. But its eyes, they glowed with a soft blue light, just like the walls of the house. "Tim," a voice rustled, like blowing wind. "You don't need to come down for me. You must open the door with the mirror." Tim looked around, bewildered. "What door? I don't see any doors." And then the hall walls trembled. The mirrors began to slowly turn, creating a new pattern, a new outline. Identical shapes began to appear in the reflections, a rectangle with a rune in the middle. The well spoke to the boy again. "Find the one that doesn't reflect you." And the face disappeared. Tim approached the first mirror. It reflected him, pale, frightened, but resolute. In the second, also him. In the third, him again. But the fourth. In the fourth mirror, there was no reflection at all. Only an empty room. And on the wall, a dark door. Tim reached out. The mirror's surface became soft, like water. He took a breath and stepped inside. A moment later, he was on the other side. The room was narrow, elongated, like an ancient corridor. The walls, made of the same black wood as the house outside. And before him, there really was a door. The rune he'd seen in the mirrors was carved into it. He touched it with his palm. The door trembled and opened. Beyond it lay emptiness. Infinite. But at the very edge, as if suspended in the air, lay his father, unconscious. "Dad!" Tim rushed forward. But as soon as he made a step, the floor beneath him vanished. The air rushed away, and the boy felt himself falling into an abyss. And then the pendant on his chest flashed. The light around him gathered into a thread and caught him, like a benevolent hand. Tim hovered above the void, and then slowly descended to his father. He touched his shoulder. "Dad, wake up, please." And his father slowly opened his eyes. "Tim," his father's voice was quiet, hoarse. "How did you find me?" "I just kept going," Tim swallowed. "And stopped running away." His father tried to get up, but his strength failed him. "This house, it traps fear," his dad said with difficulty. "My group and I found strange markings. I went further, and then the walls closed in." "I'll get you out," Tim said. "But how?" They were in a space that defied rules. The pendant heated up again and flashed. A soft amber dome appeared around Tim and his father. The surrounding void hissed, as if displeased by this interference. "Is this your power?" his father whispered, surprised. Tim didn't know what to say. And then, for the first time, he understood a simple thing. He was still afraid. But fear no longer controlled him. It had become his tool. The dome began to move upward, lifting them back towards the door. Where there had once been emptiness, solid ground now appeared, fragments of corridor, as if the world was being created anew. They ascended. The door slammed shut behind them. The hall of mirrors trembled, as if it was about to collapse. "We have to go," Tim shouted. His father nodded, and together they rushed toward the exit. But the house had no intention of letting them go. The corridors lengthened. The turns changed. Doors disappeared, walls closed right in front of them. "It's rebuilding itself," his father cried out. And then a familiar voice was heard nearby. "You're going the right way." The cloaked creature stepped out of the shadows. "Who are you?" Tim asked, pulling his father closer. "The one who observes," the creature replied. "The forest is neither good nor evil. It simply reflects you. You came here full of fear. But now you carry a strength it recognizes." The creature extended a hand, and the corridor before them straightened. "Run. The house won't hold the path for long." Tim didn't ask questions. They ran. Behind them, walls crashed shut, floors gave way, ceilings crumbled with wood dust. Tim felt the heat of the pendant, it seemed to protect them with its light. Suddenly, a bright exit appeared ahead, the very one he had entered through. "Come on!" Tim cried. They dashed outside. And the house collapsed. At that moment, it collapsed. Quietly, as if exhaling. The air outside was fresh, cool. Night had already fallen. Somewhere far off, an owl hooted. His father sat on the grass, breathing heavily. "I thought I wouldn't make it back," he whispered. "Me too," Tim quietly admitted. The creature emerged from the house, which was now transforming into an ordinary, rotting log cabin. "Your path ends here," it said. "But another has begun." "Why me?" Tim asked. The creature smiled a strange, slightly sad smile. "Because the one who fears the most is capable of becoming the bravest. The forest chooses those like you. It shows them what is hidden from others." Tim touched the pendant. "And this? Do I need to return it?" "No," the creature replied. "It's yours now. A reminder that fear isn't an enemy. It's a part of you. And if you listen to it wisely, it will lead you where you're needed." The creature dissolved into the darkness, as if it had never existed. Tim sat in silence. The forest around him no longer seemed frightening. It was deep, alive, mysterious, but not hostile. His father placed a hand on his shoulder. "I'm proud of you, son." Tim smiled for the first time in a long time. The journey back was long, but no longer terrifying. The forest no longer whispered sinister sounds. Shadows didn't follow them. Everything was quiet and natural. When they emerged from the blueberry woods, the morning dawn was already breaking on the horizon. His mother ran to meet them, hardly seeing them from afar. She hugged her husband and son so tightly that Tim gasped for breath. "Where have you been? I thought you were." She didn't finish. His father only whispered, "Long story." But his mother looked at her son more closely. "You're different," she said, surprised. Tim nodded. He felt it. As if a spark had ignited within him, a spark that fear had always extinguished before. A week passed. Life in the village returned to normal. But one morning Tim approached the edge of the forest. The path was still there. The same path. But now it didn't scare him. He touched the pendant he wore under his shirt. And it seemed to him, or perhaps he wanted to believe it, that the forest quietly sighed in response. "I'll be back," Tim said. And the path seemed to widen slightly, inviting him. He smiled and turned around, heading home. Because now he knew, fear isn't what holds him captive. It's what shows him where to go. And somewhere deep in the blueberry woods, the cloaked creature watched him, nodding slightly.